an empty game object with a name that will be our secret key for decryptation. On the main camera, I connected the HiScore or the score handler script here, so let's move into that one and start coding. Two variables. First, we got our score, which will be 0 every new game, and we also get the best score that we're gonna get from the database. So I'm gonna start off here, since we have a function called getHiScore from database, and just address this on startup. We also have a couple of helper classes here. Public endpoints that's only get and set for the score, so it can be reachable from other scripts. We also have the send to HiScore. That's just to check if our score is greater than the best score, then we're going to save a new HiScore. So let's begin by adding the labels so we can display the score and the HiScore on stage or on screen. So I'm just going to copy paste this in, since it's not that new stuff in here. It's just we're putting the text white, we're setting the position, we're also setting the font size, and then we're just writing out two labels. One writing out the score and the current score, and the other one the HiScore, all time high. So you can go through that by yourself, but that's just two labels being printed out on view. So let's start off with the MD5 sum. That will be the decryptation algorithm here. So this one is getting the string we want to encryptate, and what we want to do now is add our secret key to it. So I'm just going to add by doing s plus equals game object, and we're going to find the XX MD5 object, and from that we're going to collect the name of the first child, since there's only one child within that object. So I'm going to do transform dot get child to 0 there, name, and then we need to create the MD5 cryptography. So that one is located in the system security dot cryptography dot MD5, and I'm gonna just call that age, and then we just need to copy paste this, since we do MD5 dot create. Missing S there, so capital S MD5.create. There you go. Now we created our MD5 here. So I'm gonna continue with this hash. So create a byte array here. Data. And that will be the computed hash from the string. So I'm gonna do age data equals age.computed hash. System.text.encoding, default.getBytes, and send in our string. That's all for that. Now we need to create a string representation, and we're going to do that by creating a new string builder. So I'm just going to go ahead with the system.text again, get the string builder here. I'm just going to call that SV, and that'll be just a new string builder. So let's copy paste that one to a new string builder. Done. Now we need to loop through the data and add that or append that to our string builder So we're gonna loop through as long as there's still bytes left in the data. So we're gonna do data dot length. And for every iteration, we're gonna append a string. We're gonna append it with the data that we need to make it to a string here, and add the x2. There we go. All done. We just need to return here. We're gonna return the string. Cryptation is done, and we're going to create a function saving the cryptation here. So we're going to do first a string temp value. That one will have the MD5 sum, and since this is taking an int, we need to send in the value but typecast to a string. Then we're going to save both our hash here, and we're also going to save the value, so we're going to save it to two separate player prefs. So first of all, I'm going to set string for the hash. That is named score underscore hash, and there you have the temp value. And for the other player prefs, we're going to say the set int, that one's name score. We're going to say the value there. So now we can compare if the value matches this hash of the value. We know that the high score hasn't been tampered with and the score is correct. So let's create a function to actually decrypt our cryptation here. What we're going to do is first to just create a temp value again, that equals 0. And if no one has added anything to the database, our value here will be equal to nothing, and we can go ahead and add just the temp value, so we have something in the database at least. But if that string is not empty, we know that there is something in the database, and we're going to go ahead and see if the checksum matches up or the hash is correct. So first of all, we're going to do the else here. And we're going to see if we're going to compare the value we got. So if the value equals, MD5, send in our player prefs dot get int. So we're going to send in the score that's saved within that one. And we need to typecast that one to string. So if that one is correct, we can go ahead and set the temp value to the score value. Let's go get int, get the score. There we go. if that doesn't match up, we know that something has happened to the database and probably somebody has been doing some shady stuff with it, so we can just go ahead and save value 0 since the data is corrupt. So last thing, we just need to do a return here. Within this function, we're going to return the temp value. So either it will be 0 or it will be the correct value. So last thing here is just to get high score from database. So we're just going to return the decrypted value. So we're going to decrypt the player prefs dot get string, and we're going to get the score hash here. There we go. That's everything for this database class. So I'm going to move over into our screen here, and I'm going to press play, and you'll see the 2 labels there, but the other stuff is all in the backbone. So in the next lesson, we're going to start counting points, adding score to the high score list, and we're also going to add in a couple of in-game sounds.